But Russians are extremely sensitive to the deaths of conscripts, and that's bad news, because as Ukraine forced its way into Kursk, this was largely all that stood in their way. Confusion quickly turned to outrage and grief as media released by Ukrainian forces made its way to the Russian blogosphere. While the public line from the Kremlin and state media was that the Ukrainian assault had been blunted, the truth coming from Ukrainian social media told a completely different story. Trenches of dead Russian soldiers, convoys ambushed by HIMARS and elite Ukrainian special forces, and video after video after video of the capture of huge numbers of POWs, as many as an entire company of soldiers in one single instance. Russian POWs, many of them conscripts, had their hands duct taped over their eyes to immobilize and blind them as they were transported back across the border to prison camps. Interviews with 18-year-old soldiers gave truth to the harrowing tale of their capture. Entire units decimated by far superior Ukrainian firepower, with the survivors quickly attempting to surrender. Once more, it was Russian mothers who were the first to organize, launching a social media movement to bring attention to the plight of conscripts. Within days of the invasion, at least 52 Russian families were inquiring with the Ministry of Defense on the status of their sons stationed in Kursk. Change.org petition was created, imploring President Vladimir Putin to withdraw conscripts from combat operations, citing inexperience and a lack of weapons. Launched on August 7th, the petition had just over 9,000 signatures on August 15th. A full-scale offensive is currently taking place in our territory. Please save the lives of untrained soldiers in combat, read the petition. Unsurprisingly, the Kremlin was silent on the matter. In the subsequent days, even more casualties and POWs would follow. Russia had relied heavily on the use of conscripts on its border, believing that Ukraine would never dare invade Russia thanks to Putin's heavy use of nuclear threats to intimidate the West. These forces had little to no training and very poor equipment. According to one captured conscript, he went to the shooting range only one time and fired 2 rounds. That would be the culmination of his military training before being sent to Kursk to guard the border. Member of the State Duma Andrei Gurylev would try to assuage Russian fears, stating shortly after the invasion that, quote, "In this conflict, conscripts in the Kursk region successfully defended an entire brigade's assault, and not a single soldier was lost." The truth was significantly different from his public statement, and Russia was finding loopholes around its social contract with the Russian people to not send conscripts into combat. Per a Russian source, as conscript forces were being evacuated from the fighting, they were allegedly forced to sign military contracts and sent back into the fighting. The difficulty for Russian forces is the deep integration of conscripts with regular army forces, with units having a mix of contract soldiers and conscripts. This makes it impossible to simply separate the two as they're being prepared to counterattack Ukrainian forces. With the invasion so fresh though, it's unknown what effect this will have on the Russian people, especially as Ukraine continues to gain ground and Russia seems to be scrambling for solutions.